welcome to the PP. On today's episode, we have a super special guest, and I say that every single time, so I guess it's getting less special. But for me personally, this episode's going to be, I believe, one of my favorites because it's talking about what the world needs more of. We're talking about men. And specifically, we're here with Jody, the owner, founder of Thumos, which is literally a school for men. Like, how often do you hear that? So with that being said, watch the whole episode because it's gonna be some really good stuff. I'm like super excited, super pumped about this. I've been prepping for some time now. But I guess to get started, do you want to tell them more, I guess, about like what Thumos is? And I guess I don't want to talk about really how it got started. Maybe we'll get into that because I really just want to talk about how we can help them be more
Absolutely.
of a man, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the typical man who comes to us, they're typically in some version, first of all, they're motivated, but they're in some version of stuck. They're unclear. They're, they want more out of life, and they don't always know how to get it. And these are good men, these are motivated men, but they're just not yet clear on their purpose in life, their God-given gifts and talents, the path in which to go be in purpose. And they know they have more potential than what's being realized in their life, but they're not sure how to go get it. That's the typical man that comes to us, our school for men.
So I guess from what I looked up, Thumos is basically a community of optimizing men for growth, purpose, and impact. And then Thumos, the word in of itself, means spiritedness, I believe. Is that correct? So I guess what is that? Like how do you do that? How do you develop the school? Like is it like I'm going to a college or is it like what is that?
Not necessarily a college, although we do have sort of structure in place and we have ways to advance. But so the word itself is exactly what you said. It's a Greek word. It loosely translates into spiritedness. Let's go wake some men up. So many men are playing small. A lot of men are not even afraid, if I just kind of jump to an extreme here, they're not even afraid of dying. But are they really living? Are they true to their calling and their purpose and living life with zeal and passion and purpose and competence? So I put together the School for Men to help wake men up so that they can truly understand who they are and what is their potential in this life. The world needs it. Our wives and the women that we love, they need their men to wake up. That's what we're up to.
How do they like pursue that? And I say that because most men, and like there's a huge joke on social media, men will do anything but go to therapy. And it's technically really a form of therapy, even just this podcast episode, because it's a school for men, teaching men how to be men. You know, it's kind of like asking for directions. I don't need no directions. I can figure this out. I'm a man. And I guess there's kind of that ego, which plays a role into that, if you will. But again, like what is the actual, I guess, what is the school?
The school consists of really three things. We have our own Mighty Network. It's a private platform where we're sharing. There's no advertisements. There's no algorithms. It's just Thumos. It's our private platform. We're sharing tactics, tools, techniques, inspiration, wisdom, accountability, all on our private network. It's called a Mighty Network. It's one. We also, as part of the membership, we have Zoom meetings. We have a lunchtime power hour, 11:30 to 12:30 Central Standard Time, 1 hour. It's a great ROI. It is the best leadership training for those that have jobs and businesses, and like there's no better hour to spend, in my opinion, than with other men leveling up. We have a Thursday night call as well, 7 p.m. Typically, it's an hour to an hour and a half. We'll go a little longer because the truth is we get around other men, we open up, we go deep, we get huge insights and ahas because it's a coaching and mentoring group space. We don't want to get off the call. We don't want to get off that phone. And then we've got our flagship, which is our weekend experience, and I'll tell you more about that here in a little while.
Yeah.
We do 3 of those a year, and I don't call them retreats by design. It's okay if people call them retreats, no problem, no worries. But a retreat, especially a spiritual retreat, we have a spiritual element for sure. Faith and spirituality is one of our F's. We have 8 F's. But it's a place where we go and we do work. That's why I don't call it a retreat. And that work is so powerful. These men break through. We call it an experience. And from there, I go, how do you put an experience into words? So for those who have had like a growing up, had a great Christmas morning, can you really do that justice? How do you really put that into words? That's our weekends. We've attempted to put it into words. We've got more testimonies and feedback from real men breaking through. I mean, we have tons of those. But it's essentially those two, and then one-on-one with me, where I will spend time kind of coaching, helping, mentoring men one-on-one. I also work with women, especially in a business or leadership setting. But for Thumos School of Men, we're just talking men at this point. So it's essentially those three ways.
I kind of wanted to ask, and I kind of know a little bit of the answer. I wanted to ask why should or why would somebody do this? But I mean, the answer is it's obviously to better themselves, which most people won't even do. But it's kind of, and there's a quote I like to say. It's like a compass. You may not know what the right direction is, but you know what better is, and better points you in the right direction. So this, just Thumos, might be your better to point you in the right direction, which kind of leads me into the next thing that I think of, just as anybody watching something online or hearing about it or whatever it is what's the cost of that? As in, like any business, whether it's small or large, there's a cost associated, whether that price is for me or that price is not for me. So I guess, and is there different like levels to it? Because that's probably I'm assuming your biggest gatekeep, or like the biggest hurdle for people to get over to, jumping into a community or starting something like the Thumos School for Men.
I think the biggest hurdle is, why do I need this? Can I tell you a little backstory?
Yeah,
For
go
me?
for it. Go for it.
Like most men of any age, so I'm 53, but like most men, I had gone through some hardship in life. And so if I take it back to one of my harder moments, my first marriage crashed and burned. She had some issues, good person, I have nothing bad to say. I had issues too, hell, we all do when you look back. But she was bipolar, she ended up on drugs, it was a bad thing. That did not end well. That was a very low point in my life. I had come to realize in this bad situation that she had run up a bunch of debt. My name's Jody, a girl's name. She had my social. So she was running up all kinds of debt all around town. So when I found out that my wife I knew she was bipolar, but then I found out she had a serious drug problem and that she had run up credit cards just sky high. In all of this, we try to get her help. We move out. I'm in a remote place, living with my mom at the time. Last place I ever wanted to be. Last place. But my mom had reached out. That's how that came about, and offered help. So let's go take and let's get out of that area and let's get in a new environment and get her help. That didn't work out. She ended up missing on the streets. The bottom line is I hung in there a long time, isolated, lonely, no tribe. I turned to God. I turned to the F of fitness. So the F of faith, God, the F of fitness, and the F of finance, Dave Ramsey specifically at that time, because I had to work myself out of a hole. Ultimately, I had to hire a PI to find her, serve her, divorce her. Did all of that, and I had to get through all the guilt and the shame of till death do you part, didn't want to go through divorce, but went through all of that. Dark time in my life. Mostly all alone, just me and God, and some, basically my mom and close family. But I didn't really have a tribe. I didn't have brothers. I didn't have men that I could really lean on. So I just put my head down and grinded. I got through all of that, ultimately divorced. Ultimately, she died, low part of life. But I realized that after going through all of that, kind of early 20s through my mid 20s, I woke up one day and I was approaching 30. I was free. Now I had to let go of some guilt of going through that divorce, and she was not free. She didn't make it,
Yep.
da da da. But I was free, and I could have or do or be anything in life I wanted. And I was just always kind of wired for more in life, an achievement junkie. Not all good, not all bad. So I turned to the drug of self-improvement. I turned to God, I turned to finance, I turned to fitness, but I wanted to better myself in every way.
Yeah,
I
you didn't know what direction to go in, but you knew what better was.
Absolutely. Thank God. So I was blessed. I didn't turn to alcohol. I turned to self-improvement. And in those days, we didn't have awesome podcasts like this. We didn't have YouTube. I would go to Barnes and Noble, grab a coffee. I'm surrounded by books. And I would be there all day on a Saturday. I'd
Yeah,
be there half a day on a
there
Sunday.
was no David Goggins. There was no.
None of that. I was the David Goggins back then in my own way, right? Just gritting and
Yeah.
grinding and whatnot. All to say, I got through it. I got out of all that debt. I got certified in health and safety, I was in corporate America. I'd finished a master's degree. I'd read 60 books. I read the Bible cover to cover. I was on my way. I was working Shell for an international group. I had a boss that cared, who loved me. It's good company. Shell paid well. I was on my way.
You're making money,
I was making money. Good corporate job. I was already a leader in corporate America.
which, and I don't mean to stop you, but that is a huge point to what men perceive, how men perceive themselves, I believe. So, like, a lot of men perceive themselves in their vocation. The thing that they do is how they value themselves. Like being, like all the way back to Stone Age or whatever you want to say, just back in the past, we are the providers of the family. That's how all men perceive themselves, and how much money they make is a direct correlation to that. So it's a very big, measuring stick for a lot of men.
It's a big measuring stick, right or wrong. We we connect our self-worth through our productivity, our provision, our paycheck, the money that we
Yeah.
make.
And I was
Right or
just saying
wrong.
that
Yeah,
just, because you're in a point now where you're making,
I'm doing well.
yeah,
I'm doing well. And in those days, especially early on, that's when we could just save our money. Insurance was paid for at the company, and college meant something. It's a little more almost a scam this day and age. Not totally, but I was
yeah.
on my way. And then I had this boss that cared for me at Shell. He asked me on a men's weekend. I was like, cool. Okay, yeah, I'll think about it. I don't remember him saying too much about it. That's the first time. About a week or two later, Joseph, he asked me a second time, hey, have you thought any more about this men's weekend? It's this thing, it's Mankind Project, and they do weekends, they're international. This is me telling you, asking you as a friend, so don't go to Shell HR. Yeah, I wouldn't have done that anyway. Cool, thanks, Dan. I'll think about it. Yeah.
And so this is a coworker of yours.
And he's a boss.
Oh, he's okay.
He's a boss.
Yeah, so you're more inclined to like, sure, boss.
Bingo. Bingo. He asked me a third time. How about this weekend? I didn't want to go on a weekend. I just didn't know how to tell him no. I had never told a boss no. I had probably never told an authority figure no.
It's hard to tell your boss no.
Your boss is almost like a reflection of your dad, and we can get more into that. I've done a lot of work about what men need and their relationship with their dad and the hurdles they have to climb based on those relationships, their relationship with God, all these things rooted and based on dad. Not all, but a lot. I told him yes because I didn't know how to say no to that men's weekend. I went on that weekend. It was a cold January weekend. There was about 30 other men. That weekend blew me away.
I can almost imagine you. You're nervous. You don't really want to go. You feel like you have to go because your boss just asked you, and now you're showing up to a cold weekend. And seasonal depression is a thing. So they obviously have the atmosphere, the place you're uncomfortable with. You don't know any of these people. So I guess, and then it blew you away.
They had us.
What was it that blew you away?
Yeah, the depth. They had us carpool up for a reason. And part of that reason, which is a tiny part, is the environment and carpooling. Yeah, yeah. The real reason is that you surrender your keys so you don't bail out on that weekend. These men literally met me and these 29 or 30 other men up on that road, and they looked us in the eye so deeply that they were looking into our souls.
And now is this like a Christian event? Is this Buddhist? Is this like
It's
some type of religious
it's
thing? Or
wild, and it was everything. It was men doing men's work. There were Christian men on there. Thank God I needed that. There were businessmen and leaders. I needed that. It's where I was. I was in the church at that time, and I needed that for a little bit of comfort. But there were Indian, Native American,
Good.
white, straight, gay. The whole beauty of what they were about was men are men. Take you take your Rolex, go put it in that box. We don't care. I don't care what car you drive. They essentially stripped you down of those shields, your nice clothes, your nice watches, your little arrogance. They peeled back all the layers, and they allowed us, guided us to see ourselves for who we really are, who we serve, what we stand for. That weekend brought me deeper and taught me more things about myself than I could have ever imagined. They brought me back into my little boy to show me the beauty and the creativity and the energy and the fearless, the fear not that I used to have. They brought me back to those dreams before all the world had put its stuff, its crap on me. They showed me clarity and connection like never before. And with that, I got confidence. It was wild.
So one of the reasons I ask if it was like a Christian thing is because I know a lot of people who watch this or wherever they come from. Men, they whether it's Christianity or whether it's Buddhism or wherever they're coming from, manhood, regardless of whatever belief you believe in, is a thing that is just it's culturally around the world. That's why we have tribes. It's why we have different ways of somebody in college pledging. There is a certain set of tasks you have to go through before you're accepted into the community, or like in the Jewish tradition, a boy becoming a man. There's like a set date. But whatever culture or religion you go into, there's a difference between boyhood and manhood. So that's another reason I was asking, because people who watch this, whether they're Christian or whatever it is, I want them to be able to get something from it, in the fact that they're a man, and I want them to be more of a man and the man that they should be, regardless of whatever they believe, because it doesn't matter. The difference between a boy and a man is the amount of responsibility that he has, and you could say it so many different ways, but that's we'll get into that.
Guess what America doesn't have right now?
What?
A rite of passage. Where's our rite of passage? What is the event? So different cultures have had this throughout the ages, and some are around 12 years of age. Those boys, the moms, the aunts, they'll push those boys away. Not easy, but a rite of passage is never easy. A breakthrough is never easy. They'll push them away. And those boys go with the uncles, the brothers of those other men, the tribal warriors, the leaders, the elders, and they will go do their hardship. A rite of passage is typically some version of hardship, sometimes extreme. It's a breakthrough. They get a win at the other end of that. But that is their initiation from boyhood into manhood. America doesn't have that. We've lost. Hell, America doesn't even often have dads in the house, much less a tribe, a community, to give them that rite of passage. So what was that first weekend for me? Because I'd been through hardships, I'd been through education, I'd worked myself up. I was doing all the surface stuff, man. Read those books. I could read a lifetime of books. It would have never touched one weekend. Because it was 3D, it was in person, it was doing, it was touching. I was going through processes that were brilliant. I had my rite of passage. When men figure out or realize or rediscover that we need an initiation from boyhood into manhood, look around.
So that weekend was really like that was your initiation almost.
Absolutely. It's called an initiation weekend, a rite of passage. I saw the beauty of a tribe. Why did I need, before that, why did I need a men's weekend? Like, that sounds dumb. Like, what are we going to do? Those guys know what to do. Like, they took brilliant psychology and even some psychotherapy, but ancient traditions from everywhere. And it was wild, man. There was sage, there was drum beating, there was all kinds of stuff going on. And in all of that, as a Christ follower, I saw Christ for the first time like never before in this wild, crazy, hardcore. There were men yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
It was deep work.
Now, something I think is really important is that I asked if it's Christian or not, and I say that because that's like the go-to. That's just me. For me, it's cool, right, to see other religions and to understand them. For some people who
Me
are
too.
closed-minded, it's not. Which I say, there's a quote in the Bible, and it says that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it is the honor of kings to search out a matter. We all refer to ourselves as kings, right? So if you see something that you don't understand and you just neglect it and say no to it because you don't understand it and you've never searched it out, right? Like it's the glory of God to conceal things, but it's the honor of kings to search out it. Or, I may have just butchered it, but the point still is that if you don't seek it out, you'll never go on that adventure. You'll never grow. You'll never build resilience, because resilience is only built by actually doing something. The same way you tear a muscle to rebuild it back up, the same way you put in time to get something out. There's a quote I wanted to say that is, again, I believe is exactly what you needed. It was the manhood at the most basic level can be validated and expressed only in action. So in that sense, that's why the event is so important. That's why that weekend is so important. That's why going and doing is so important, because as men, we do things together. Like when women go on a weekend, they talk, they communicate with each other. When men do things together, we do things together. We golf together. We camp together. We build relationships through action. We're just, I believe that's how we're built. We're men of action. And that's the only way, like the quote says, at our most basic level, we're only validated and expressed only in action.
I agree. That action of me saying yes and going on that weekend, it changed my life. I was not open. I was open enough to say yes, only because I didn't know how to say no.
What's scary?
I was scared, and I was resistant, and I was comfortable in my own routine. And so, as a creature of habit and discipline, which comes easy for me, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was very closed. I got on that weekend and it busted me open. So, like you, I'm more open now than I've ever been. I'm more straight, I'm more clear on my purpose for life. I found that big purpose on that crazy,
Yeah.
secular Christian. It was a mix of everything weekend. And by the way, where I am today in my walk, man, I learned as much, if not more, from the Eastern culture. Karma, it's very aligned with their sowing and reaping, and some of their sayings and doings. It's so much as aligned that I'm fascinated by it, and I'm thankful. I'm no longer in the church. I find God in nature, connection, deep conversation. I find God in my own Thumos weekends, which we ultimately created out of necessity. But I find God in all of that.
Yeah, man, this stuff just, that's why it just fires me up. I'm so excited.
Yeah, and I also want to speak to the action thing. Yes, on the action, I agree with you. And when a man comes into Thumos, we get him clear on his mission for life. And his mission is a combination of inner and outer purpose. Inner and outer purpose. That outer purpose is the action that you speak of. It's the doing, and we better be doing that, or we're going to get in trouble. What happens if dogs don't have enough exercise, right? They dig ruts. They get themselves in trouble. They dig up the flower beds.
Self-sabotage, yeah.
Yeah, men are the same way, right?
Oh, yeah. I
If
do
we
it all
don't
the
have a
time.
clear mission, big purpose, right? If we're not doing action, exercising that, and physically fit, we tend to get ourselves in trouble. Funny how that works. I like to say there's an ing in that doing, and I want to help men get real clear on their purpose in life. Because when we do that, and we do that in Thumos, it's like the dude hit the lottery, man. He's the happiest man in the world because finally he goes, oh my gosh, I never knew, but you guys helped me put it together. And now I know what my calling, my mission for life. Oftentimes those are ing words, not always, but oftentimes. Problem solving, coaching, podcasting, teaching, accounting, engineering, selling, marketing. They don't have to be ings, but these ings are the doing words. These are purpose-driven, action-driven words that when a man finds that fits his God-given talents and gifts, when he gets real good at doing those,
Yeah.
he tends to be very, very happy. So that's the doing, but there's a being piece as well. Be still and know that I'm God. So when we teach a man, and we do this as well on our Thumos weekends, we do the doing, but we also get still for a change. That's the being piece. We're human beings. We're just so caught up and busy in the doing. And if we don't take time for the being still, prayer, meditation, listening, we're always talking and doing. Why don't we shut up and listen? When a man can balance the doing with the being, the inner and the outer purpose, now we're getting to an integrated man. That's a calm, centered, strong man. When a man is all doing with no being, I can usually show you a man that's overly busy, worrying, and anxiety, especially if he's not doing it from a place of good energy. But when we balance out the doing with the being, the doing with the non-doing, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
that's when I start to see good, strong, centered men.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I'm passionate about quotes. I love quotes. It's the way to say a lot with saying a little. My grandma used to always say that if you do too much, you'll be like a rubber band, and you'll be stretched too far, and you might just pop. But that's her quote. But that's not to say that you need a little bit of stretching. Like you have to be, and as many people know, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's like the number one tip I would give almost anybody in any profession. There's a second one. They don't know that you don't know. So, it's kind of like fake it till you make it. But my point is that you do need to be stretched. You do need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like you coming out to the weekend or just literally clicking on this episode and listening or watching or whatever you're, doing. Hopefully you're watching because you do miss out if you don't actually watch, putting a face to the name. But yeah, no, I'm just like I said before, I'm so excited about this
Joseph,
stuff.
I like to tell men, be comfortable being uncomfortable, go be uncomfortable, and then come back to comfort for a little while, just not too long. If I'm too comfortable for too long, that takes its toll, and I need to rest. I've been doing all the doing, and I need to come back to some being. But don't dare stay too comfortable for too long. I've been guilty of that in my past. I can be
Complacent.
yeah, not necessarily complacent. A lot of men are. I can be loyal to a fault and stay put too long. Friendship, relationship, work, business, etc. When I should have gone out and gotten more uncomfortable and tested the waters, which rekindles mojo, which a lot of men need, by the way. A lot of men have just lost their mojo in their fitness, their relationships, their business. They've lost their clarity. And when a man loses clarity and connection, especially with other men, they tend to lose their confidence, their mojo. So a lot of times what we do when a man comes into Thumos is I listen to their story and where their problems are. Typically it's not just one. We have 8 F's, but 3 F's kind of come to the top, right? And one is finance, it's fitness, finance, which is your whole business vocation. The other's finance, the whole business, and then there's family,
So
right?
it's finance, family, and what else?
That the 3 that most commonly float to the top: finance, fitness, family.
Finance, fitness, and family.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, I work with guys, in the business setting, very successful, very ambitious, um, executives, senior leaders, etc. Good guys, motivated guys. We can't say they're not successful. They're successful in that F of finance. But success to me and to you and any man in Thumos is we're progressing in all 8 F's Because if we get to the top in finance, and a lot of these guys are, and this is business, vocation, money, etc., tell me about their relationships, that family, or F game with their wife, another F that we have. Typically, it's a disaster. These guys have made all the money working for whatever company, their business, but their kids aren't talking to them, man.
Something gets sacrificed.
Absolutely, it's common. Show me another C-suite guy, tons of money. Cool, is that success? He's a walking heart attack. His triglycerides are through the roof. His blood sugars are terrible. He's overweight. That ain't success in my book. That's not an integrated man, which is what we're developing in Thumos.
There's one thing you said when we were on the phone, just talking about setting up the show and stuff like that, and it was that which was a good conversation, by the way. But it was that, can any man go find a self-help book? Can any man go on YouTube and read David Goggins or get inspired by some other what we perceive to be a manly man? Can they? Yes. The difference between that and what Thumos is, and I like the way you said it, is that you cut through in a sense of, how can I, like anybody, if they want to make money, how can I make money faster? How can I make more of it? And, people like to put the cart before the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only saying that to say, you said Thumos can basically help you cut through the weeds faster. And even in my own personal experience, I found it takes a lot of searching to figure out what the answer to a problem is. And even in work or whatever it is, I like to call people that are smarter than me, that have done it before, and just ask them the question. Because almost like Google, where I can just quickly type it up, this person is just going to be like, hey, here's your problem, go here, 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 and here, and you're done. And they are better able to navigate through the weeds and get you to where you need to be. And that's basically what you said, what Thumos says.
You're smart. I did so much on my own throughout. So we didn't have mighty networks. And there's a thing called School by Hermosi. Essentially, you can pay very little money and you can go find a group online like Thumos.
Is that like Alex Hormozi?
That's Alex Hermosi.
Yeah, he's another good one.
And so he's now a investor, founder of School, big investor in School, SKOOL.
Yeah.
So essentially, we can go online and we can join communities, and some are very high dollars, some are free, and everywhere in between. That's a fast track. Yeah. So I tell men, like, you could do it the way I did, and you can spend thousands and thousands and thousands of reps to put on the muscle like I did growing up a skinny kid with asthma. And I put in thousands of reps, man, and I got strong. I was pressing 140-pound dumbbells, chest press, for 2 decades, up until 16 weeks ago when I had my neck accident, right?
That's solid, though.
It's solid. It's solid, right? Especially at 175, 180 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was proud of that, and I did it for 2 decades. But I got all of that from, like, searching things out and reading books and looking at the magazines in the old days and asking some gym bro. But can you imagine if I had gone straight to guys who have done it, that shot me straight, and I wouldn't have listened to, how much of what I read was actually accurate? How much money did I waste on amino acids? I like amino acids, by the way, but supplements that turned out to not be worth any while at all. Bottom line is, I did it the slow way by trying to do things on my own, whether I was building relationships, building muscle, building money, building business, my careers. I wasn't asking for help, man. And one day I realized, and it was men's work, it was Thumos early on, because I've been doing this for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do it because I found my gift and I'm able to exercise my gift, which makes me the happiest man on the planet. Because when a man has found his God-given gift to go serve the world, and he does that and he gets really good, he's a very happy guy.
I did say, I said before that I'm a quote fiend. I love quotes. It's a way to say a lot, saying a little. And I love prefacing things, because the people who watch and listen to this, I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know if it's Spotify, if it's YouTube, or if it's Instagram, TikTok. There's just different people go to different places. Or if it's somebody around the world. I have no idea who's listening to this. So I try to, like I said before, be as open to as many people as I can, because, like I said, this is a topic that would help many. And there was a quote that I heard leading up to this episode, and it's similar to kind of what you're saying. And it was you became wise through the time you spent searching. And the quote is this: you can be knowledgeable through another man's knowledge, but you can't be wise through another man's wisdom. And what that means is that somebody can tell you the answer to things, and you can be knowledgeable through that, but wisdom is only built by doing. You can't be wise through another man's wisdom. You can listen to him to learn, but to be wise, like I said before, men are men of action. We have to do things. But you can speed up the
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. There's something about experience. You can show me studies and you can show me data, and that's all cool. But when I've experienced something myself, or when I've helped other men have a certain experience, we just know. We don't even need studies and data. All that stuff's cool. Wisdom is for real. It's something that's been experienced. When a man comes into Thumos, he gets a couple of things I think that's different. Because we can go read the Goggins and study the Hermoses and Joe Rogan and whoever. That's cool. That's cool. We've never had access to so much data. It's almost too much data. But here's the deal. Good luck getting one of those guys on the phone. Good luck. It's not going to happen. Some of those guys, thousands of dollars for 1 hour. And how much are you going to get out of 1 hour? How much therapy, how much coaching, how much help? When a man comes into Thumos, we've collectively put that wisdom and that experience together, but we have two things. We have care and we have competency. So we have the wisdom and the experience. I don't mean that in a braggart trying to brag. We've just done it. Testosterone therapy. Well, I've been on that for 17 years. BPC 157, I was taking that before those words probably ever come out of Joe Rogan's mouth through Dr. Larry Lipschultz in Houston. I love the guys that come into Thumos. I'm going to share all that knowledge, what works, what doesn't work, real world results. And we show that with quantifiable data like blood work, Oura ring, and that kind of stuff. That's just fitness. So when a man comes into Thumos, we figure out where he is and where he's stuck in his life or where he wants to unlock more potential. And then we've got the collective care, competency, and wisdom and experience to go, well, let's cover that in a couple of these Zoom calls with you, but I'm also going to put you in touch with Jason or Charlie or somebody that's been through it.
Now, what would be the number one thing you would tell anybody that so if somebody's listening or watching and they just are not going to get to Thumos or wherever they're at, they will never be a part of it. I still want to better them. So what is the number one thing that you would suggest any person do to grow themselves, to be more of a man and to find that purpose? Everybody's searching for purpose. What is their purpose? What am I supposed to do? Especially young men, like any person in college, what is my major? Am I sure this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? And they feel committed to it. What would you suggest?
Do the inner work. Do the inner work. Do the hard stuff. I got a lot out of books. I'm an avid learner now. I will hopefully never stop. I don't think I'll ever stop. I can listen to 100 podcasts. I can read 100 books. It doesn't touch one weekend because there's a doing, there's an experience, there's a collective come together. When you do one of our weekends and you sit in a circle with men and you go, how are you showing up in this world? Or another question, how are you showing up as a husband and a father? And you're sitting in a circle of real men.
But this is for people who can't make it to a weekend or maybe they never will. Should they still be asking themselves these questions?
Yes, but good luck doing it with oneself. I just find it much more impactful when you do it with somebody else that knows what they're doing. You mentioned earlier the word therapy. Men and being resistant to therapy. I never went to therapy. I never went to counseling. Most men I know have never gone to therapy or counseling. Therapy and counseling, it's good stuff, and it's going back, and it's spending time in the back, the childhood, the wounds, what happened. We can do all that. We do all that very effectively in Thumos. How many men can really do that alone? I think it's good to go back.
Now, what if you have I guess a group of friends or mentors that you're doing it with? Is that different?
Absolutely. I think that's good. But I think a lot of men, if they look around, they're in surface level friendships. I call it ass grab. They're talking football, they're talking fantasy sports, or even camping. right? It's at best a beer gets opened and maybe something comes up. The beauty of men who are intentional about this, like in Thumos, is when they come together, they just all of a sudden start opening up. When men open, this is what churches ought to be doing, by the way. This is why I picked up Thumos and ultimately went outside of the church, because what I didn't tell you is that crazy weekend was so real, raw, authentic, and effective, but they didn't share my faith overall, especially over time, as they continued down their path of their agenda. But the church didn't know how to go real, raw, and deep. And so ultimately, I took out Thumos and I went outside the church. So, back to your question.
Yeah.
If a man is I think that man needs to look at himself. What's the best trait of a leader? I heard that the other day, and it's, there's influence, there's charisma, there's all these things. No, I think the best trait, it's all that, but the best trait of a leader is one who is willing to look at oneself, do the inner work, the hard stuff. Why am I showing up as insecure? Why do I care so much what people think? Oh, it's self-worth. How's that man going to get there alone? I never could. How do you get to that core wound of self-worth?
So it almost sounds like it sounds like the answer is kind of a blend of like focus on the inner self. Like you're gonna have to work at it, whatever way you cut it. You're gonna have to work at it. But the faster track is to find either somebody like Thumos or um, find something that could help you navigate and
Find a
cut through
tribe.
it faster.
Find a tribe filled with trust, accountability. You want to know what therapy is? Therapy is being heard, truly being listened to. I hired a coach, and this guy spent 2 hours with me. 1 hour break, 1 hour. And all I did was talk. And he asked very few questions. And I got off that call. I went in the kitchen. I looked at my wife. I was like, wow. She says, what? I was like, that was therapy. I got medicine. I can't tell you when's the last time someone listened to you, curious, with care, like their life depended on it, for 2 hours. Oh, that's feminine, that's girl stuff. No, actually, no, that embraces the masculine. This is the stuff we need, man.
It's hard to get to that point though.
It's hard. You got to create that connection.
So 2 days before we're recording this episode, I thought it'd be fun. It was just late at night, and I messaged I don't know, a handful of people, and it was just different men. And all I said, it was really funny. I said, "Love you," to men. You know, how many people hear that? How many men hear "I'm proud of you," or how many men hear "I love you"? You know what I'm saying? Get away with that gay stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, but what was funny is they all had different responses, which means either a few things. One is the relationship I have with them, or two, where they're at mentally, physically, spiritually, and how they respond to it. And it was really funny, each of them. One one just laughed, and I said, "Say it back. I need it." Just because I thought it was funny. They ended up saying it, but another one said, "Hey, love you too, man." You know, he had a very he knew more of, I guess, who he was, so to speak. Another one said, "You're gay, like stop it." He didn't know how to receive it. Another one just, basically sent the heart back or whatever. But it was really funny. And I did it as an experiment just to see before this episode on how men respond differently to those words of like, "Hey, I'm proud of you," or "Hey, I love you," or just like, "Hey, what's going on in your life?" Or just, and approaching it in that way, and approaching it in a way of actually saying, "Hey, I care about you, like what's going on," instead of like, "Hey, listen to me, I'm gonna tell you about what I'm doing." Like most people, they just wait to tell you what they want to talk about versus actually listening to you. And
I got a couple thoughts on that. I love you. You want to hear it? That same scenario probably plays out different with veterans, military men, and women, but we're talking men here, who have been to battle together. They've seen death. From that place, there's probably a different response with "I love you" because of the depth. I was never a veteran, I never served in the military, but I've gone to battle through the hard work of men, soul work, heart work, out of mind into heart. And I've seen a lot of depth. And men come into Thumos and they find out pretty quickly that it's inner work and it's super, super powerful. And there's a depth to get that man that breakthrough, which gives him the healing and the freedom that he so needs. When a Thumos man says, I love you, it's meant, and the reception, the reciprocation is exactly the same. That's two thoughts. Here's one more. About last year, I realized I still had needs. So I have food, shelter, clothing, family, health. Never mind my neck. It's been a whole journey,
Yeah.
but for the most part, which means my needs are met. So from there, if my needs are met, then I have no needs from that place, right?
Yeah.
This is where I am going. This is where I am in my journey. Therefore, if I have no needs, if I revert back to having some need because my needs are met, I'm needy. And I needed to do this, Joseph, because growing up in life, I was needy. And I had ex-girlfriends in some version tell me I was needy. That's not a compliment for a man. That's anti-thumos. That's not of masculinity. You do not want to show up as needy, right? And so from that place, I go, love, light, and strength are my core values. And those are the core values of Thumos. Love alone doesn't need light and strength. Love alone stands alone. But I add light and strength to remind ourselves and myself. Love is strong. So true love has no needs. And so therefore, I'm becoming the man, and it's a journey, and I backtrack. If I say I love you, I'm getting to the place I need no response. Because true love, with that strength built in, it's not needy. Love has no needs, therefore I don't need a response. I'm getting to the point where if I open up the door for somebody at a convenience store, this is not just me, this is Thumos men. If I open up the door for you and you're a stranger and you don't acknowledge and say thank you, dude, I'm like, hey man, what's your problem? Imagine that. I do a kind act and then I have a need for you to say thank you. I don't know where you are, what space you're in. How could I be so needy? So I'm getting to the point now, maybe I'm there, I don't know, I do have bad days. I open the door, I have no needs. It's okay if you acknowledge me or don't acknowledge me. True love, true service has no needs. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I remember. Well, I'll say this real quick, and I wanted to ask you more,
Yeah.
but there was one place that I worked, and I was very. I just get in and I do my job, and there was this one guy that if he was in the room and you didn't say hey to him, he got really upset, and that still kind of weirded me out even to today because I'm very like, you don't need to say hey to me, you don't need to shake my hand, we know each other, we're good, whatever. But I remember I didn't find out till later that it really bothered him that every time I came in, if I didn't specifically say hey to him and take the time to like shake his hand and be cordial, really upset him. I had no idea. I was just going about my day, just happy, just doing my thing. But I just found that interesting. But I wanted to take it back to kind of that love you thing and the needs.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to approach it more from a reception standpoint because all these men, they had different ways of receiving that. And whether they were able to accept it or they struggled with it, I found interesting. And I was telling somebody else about it on the phone just because it was a little experiment I did. And feel free to do it if you're watching or listening to this. Go tell somebody that you love them, your parents or whoever it is. But I was telling him about it. And one of the things he said, he was basically just talking, and we were talking more about manhood because leading up to this podcast, I'm excited, right? That's why I keep just word vomiting because I'm just passionate about it. But one of the things he said, he was like, Joe, you're a good dude. And I talk to him all the time, and I send him quotes. I send him all kinds of stuff. Just when I get it, you don't even need to read it. I tell him that. I'm like, dude, I don't care if you read it. I'm just sending it to you because, I like you. You're a good friend of mine, and I think you can go far. I think you can go a lot of places. But I remember on the phone, he says, Joe, you're a good dude. And I just didn't even know how to accept that. I was like, what I told him? I said, I received that. And that's all I can tell you, because outside of that, I have no idea how to fully accept and receive those words,
Yeah.
but I receive it. That's all I can do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what do you think about just the different way men receive those kind of words, whether it's like a father, or whether it's
Mm-hmm.
their past trauma, or they haven't been told before? But I found it very interesting on how each of them received that very different.
Well, you also did on text,
That's true.
which is much different than face to face, right? So he's got it's where is the man in his life, his journey, and his energy at that given time, right? So he might be he might be arguing with his wife. He might be super busy. He might be, knee deep buried in TikTok, right, with dopamine firing off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, it's a very uncontrolled. It's an experiment,
Yeah.
but very uncontrolled, right? You do that face to face with somebody after an hour conversation, it's probably a different response. You do that with a buddy who's going through a separation with his wife, right? He needs to be heard. You may not have all the answers. Listening sometimes, holding heart space for another man, that's what's needed. Because here's what's happened. Men's come into Thumos, especially a weekend, they start sharing some stuff, and they think they're all alone. It's the same crap, man, that we're all going through. Sometimes a little different twist, oftentimes not. And the man always goes, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one." No, dude, you're not alone. You're not alone. And guess what? You take it from the dark, you put it into the light, and it tends to go away. It tends to dissolve. Not always right away, but it tends to get better. So I think it depends on where the man is, where he is in his journey, where he is in his current state of energy, what he's doing, what he's got going on. I think busyness gets in the way of a whole lot of connection. I think busyness is one of the new drugs. I think people are addicted to busyness. It's all that doing without the balance of being. I think they're wearing it as a badge of honor. I'm going to the next level in Thumos and say, if you tell me you're busy for a year straight, I'm going to call you out and I'm going to call it weakness. Well, how do I call it weakness? Well, go meet with your boss and he's busy, busy, busy. He's got no time for you. Is that strong or weak? Especially if it's habitual. Now go meet with that same boss, different scenario. He's calm. He puts his phone down. He sits down. He goes, "What you got? How can I help?" He's centered. That feels like strength. So from that place, chronic busyness to me feels like a portion of weakness.
Could the busyness, though, be a form of the therapy in a sense?
It's a therapy and it's an addiction. Absolutely.
Okay, because I've used it before where I've gotten
And there's nothing wrong with busyness, by the way,
yeah. Well,
right?
I've used it before, and for lack of better words, I've used it before because I got so pissed off that I just needed to get something done, and I needed to take action. So I got just so focused because I didn't know what else to do, that I had to just focus on what I knew was better, and I had to just get busy.
Sounds constructive. I love it. It does not sound destructive. Guess what else needs action? Fear. Fear needs action. When a man gets into fear and he's doing nothing other than thinking and ruminating and compulsing, the fear tends to grow. Fear cripples. Worry's a cousin to fear. It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. Fear cripples. Worry over time is so insidious, we don't even know we're doing it. It'll kill us over time. It's dis-ease. Dis-ease, outside of ease. But that fear and that worry, it needs some action, productive action. So all I'm saying is too much busyness over time. You meet someone, they're busy. They were busy a year ago. They're busy 5 years ago. When are you not going to be busy, dude?
Yeah, and I can't stand when somebody's so busy that I'm trying to tell them about this thing that I'm passionate about, that they just pay no mind, pay no attention. And I'm just like, okay, I'll talk to you later.
If
Love
they're,
you, like you, but we'll
yeah,
talk about this later.
if they're that busy, they're not centered. And so I think a centered man, an integrated man, is a strong man. That's a powerful man. That's what we need more of in this country. And by the way, there's a lot of things I see dads doing right, verbalizing and communicating. At my age, 53, most of us, we didn't hear dad saying, "I love you, son. I'm proud of you, son. You've got what it takes." I think I'm proud of you, and you've got what it takes. I think those are some of the most powerful things that we can say to our boys, and it's going to be okay. Every man that's gone deep on our weekends, specifically our carpets, where these men go up, stand up, if they've got an issue, and they're going to go to and through it, and they do, they need to hear some version. Well, first of all, 98% of those men, they're shedding tears over their dad, not their mom. Mom could have been the worst. Mom could have left. Mom could have died. There could be a mom issue. But 98% of those men are shedding a tear over their dad. We're wired. We're wired for that for some reason. And what they need to hear, especially once they go to and through their core wound, because when you said what's the number one thing someone can do the inner work. Figure out what's really going on. You're fearful. You're not confident. You don't feel worthy. You feel like an imposter. We're bringing that same stuff to every situation, every relationship, every job. We will keep getting the chances to learn the lesson until we learn the lesson. So in my mind, there's no way around doing the deep inner work. And so what a lot of these men need, and they get to hear it from other men, and for some reason we tend to believe it, they need to hear it's going to be okay. Whatever they're going through, it's killing them on the inside. They hear it's going to be okay from those other men, and they're like, it's like they rest in that.
That's why I'm so excited about this. It fires me up because it really does cut through. I see myself, but I don't see how you might see me. You know, I can see myself from a mirror, but I can't truly see myself. You are the only one that can see me. So what I'm dealing with, it takes a long time for me to be able to step outside of myself, to get out of my box or circle or whatever it is that I'm in, to be able to actually objectively look at whatever the physical issue, mental issue, spiritual, whatever issue it is I'm dealing with. It takes a long time, and it's really hard to get out of it, to be able to look at it from an outside point of view, because I'm me. But something like Thumos gets me so excited, or if it's the church or whatever it is, it takes somebody else to be able to cut through. The outside looking in, like I said before, can just really cut down the time it takes to actually be better. It's like having a good mentor. The growth is huge. It's so much faster than you would just on your own.
It's wisdom. I was saying 15 years ago, you see me and he sees me and he sees me, but I don't see me. But what I want in that is I want to know what you see. There's beauty in that. That's the cutting to the chase. And when a man, whether it's Thumos or whatever it is, if a man will put together a group of men that see him and will shoot him straight, the right group of men will cut you, but stick around to sew you back together. That's what it's all about. Not cut and run, are not the churches that I was part of, where if there's any issue at all, I'll pray for you, and then they run off. And then you hope they don't gossip and that they do pray. No. That's going fishing. When a man shares, another man cuts as needed, messages accordingly, because some men need to be told, get a damn job, dude. You're being a boy. You need to be a man. Your wife deserves better. Sell the motorcycle, quit playing, and get a job. And we've messaged that to men. But typically the men I work with, it's not that. It's the opposite. These are high achievers, ambitious, not perfect. They're getting after it. They're busy, right? They're doing. And that message is different. My men message to me, dude, smell the roses. Play with your kids. Enjoy life at some point. They're different messages, but they're the message that's right for that man at that right time.
You saying that made me think about another instance where it's a guy I'll call often. He lives in a different state at this point, but I'll literally message him randomly out of the blue, just because I'll see stuff that he's doing, and I'm like, hey, dude, you're an awesome dad. I see, just visited you. Your house is like in order. Your finances are in order. I've seen your relationship with your wife grow. I see your children growing. You spend a lot of time with them. You have a lot of focus on them. And I'll just message him this, just out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how I am. I'm one to call and check up on you. I'm one to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And it's part of another quote, and I'm probably gonna butcher this. I should have wrote it down, and it's that something similar to what you were saying before. It was that inward growth plus outward service builds happiness. And it's that inward growth of studying, seeking to find better, actually wanting to better yourself. And I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if you make 20,000 or if you make 200,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. As long as you're pursuing something better, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're pursuing something better, that's growth. And if you're growing, plus you're doing outward service, whether that's your family or if you're a single man and you're
Mm-hmm.
helping somebody or you're just talking to somebody, whatever that outward service is, you'll be much happier. It's like the saying of can't fill your cup if
Mm-hmm.
it's always full, or vice versa of that.
Yeah, it's truth. Tony Robbins, probably the GOAT, right, for self-improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, old school. One time I was listening to him and he said that of the thousands of people that he's coached, he's come to believe that one word equals happiness, progress.
Hmm.
And I heard that, and it's probably my ego, right? When I usually in Thumos, when we talk ego, we're rarely talking about pride. We're talking about this false self and this radar and this thing that's always looking out for other things. This thing we call ego. So it's probably my ego that kicked off, and so I kind of like, nah, I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that. Tony can't know what he's talking about. The more I thought about it, I go, I think he's right. Progress equals happiness. When a man is not progressing, he tends to not be happy. Is happiness the goal or some command? No. But who wants to get to the end of life, right, and be described as he wasn't a very happy man? It's okay to have happiness. We should have happiness, and progress is a piece of that. And I totally agree with you. I think there's an inner and an outer component. That outer service. Then what I realized in my own life, especially serving, is it wasn't just the serving piece. It was how I served and the energy I showed up with. If I served with an expectation, oftentimes I was disappointed. Man, I did this, and this guy, he didn't even buy us pizza, and I helped him move. I remember that. I resented that, man. That was wrong of him. Guess what? I had an expectation. I didn't even communicate. He was under test. He didn't even know he had a test. He was being tested. I didn't even know I was testing him. But I served, and then I was aggravated and resented that I had served him. That is not of God. I had expectations around that service. My energy was bad with that service.
Hmm.
So I agree with you. It's not just what we do, the serving, the providing, the protecting, the grinding. It's how we do it. And I think that's where Thumos is probably a little different. So I love the hard messages from the characters bigger than life right now, because I think we're in an age and a time, especially in this country, where men need hard messages and role models. David Goggins, Andrew Tate, these hyper masculine, build your business, drink coffee, grind all day. Alex Ramosi, man, these are great guys, far surpassed me in money, big time. I think we need that. It's also not a complete man. It's not a complete message yet. Show me Alex Ramosi in 15 years, if and when he has a family and he has a faith, a spirituality side. Now we're talking about a complete man, what I called an integrated man of Thumos. Goggins is accomplishing things, but it's on the fuel of grind and grit and anger and hate. I've done that. I've built the muscle. I've built money. I've done that. And that fuel works. It's just a toxic fuel. It's below the line. We can build muscle and money on toxic fuel, grind and grit. And we need those hardcore messages for soft boys and so-called men. but it's not the end state. There's a higher level fuel. Why don't we build relationships and businesses and muscle from a get to do instead of a got to do, from flow state instead of grind, from joy and peace instead of anger and sadness?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like I and you mentioned it, like David Goggins, it's very that like grind set, or Alex.
And have you seen his child? You've read the book and his
Oh,
childhood?
yeah.
So it's deep inner work and the dad issues, and here we go.
Yeah, but I look at him like you said, and it's very like he's a single guy, or I guess not anymore. But I look at people like that, and I start looking at their family, and I look at other things because we try to relate to people. We try to relate to things in our own personal way, just like somebody watching this episode will. And I look at that, and I find people call it the duality of man, which is can be funny and interesting at the same time. But I find it interesting to think about children and family and faith and fitness. And there's manhood in all of these things. And it's really interesting to be able to figure out what the manliness, like what the most manly thing is about these things. Like for instance, somebody's crying, and this is another way I heard it, and I love to view it this way. They say real men cry, and that's it. Or they say he's more in touch with his feminine side, which I don't agree with. The way I perceive it and the way I heard it is that he's not more in touch with his feminine side. He's more emotionally intelligent. He's more emotionally aware of who he actually is. He's not afraid of letting that emotional side out because he understands that there's a time to, like the Bible says, there's a time to celebrate, there's a time to mourn, there's a time to cry, there's a time to be joyous, there's a time for all of these things. But like you were saying before with David Goggins, you look at him and he doesn't have children. So how does that play into it?
And this is not about, I don't want to bash him because I think a lot of what he's doing is great, right?
Yeah,
Teaching drive and ethic.
I love it.
But is he a happy man? Is he peaceful?
Maybe, I don't know.
I doubt it. My North Star is peace. My values are love, light, and strength. I believe we can do the doing, build the buildings, create the things that need to be created from a better energy, from a place of love and light and strength.
But I guess I feel like there is a part though where you do like, and I keep saying David Goggins just because it's just who we're talking about. But I feel like there is a place also to embrace that quote unquote darkness, that anger. Like I said before, where I was just,
You have to exercise it.
yeah, I have to, like, I got to get so busy because I got to make something happen,
Yes. And you have to, I believe you have to ultimately go to and through it. Because let's stop talking David for a second. Take any man that's grinding and angry, and 98% of the time we're talking about dad issues. That's how he got there. Is he a pleasant man to be around? I have a lot of love and compassion for the women in my life and the wives of Thumos. They're investing and trusting me and my community with their men. And those men are being vulnerable. One of the things I ask the men is, let's just say Jason, what is it like for Franny to be married to you? And I want you to really think about that.
It's a good question.
Yeah, so if we're building and grinding on this fuel of anger, it is a powerful fuel short term. It's just not a long game. Ask me how I know. I mastered anger and all its cousins. Agitation, aggravation, irritation, all those Asians, they're forms of anger. They're mild. I wasn't punching holes in walls, but I had some Asians going on with the irritations, aggravation, agitation. People tell me, hey, I like you better when you've had a drink. That's not a compliment. That's because I was a type A with some anxiety and some anger built in and agitated and get stuff done. Give me a coffee. Let's go, go, go. You see, I grew up doing all this doing and contracting like I was all yang. I was all masculine. I was all contracted and tight. That's cool, man. That's cool. Let's roll. But all that yang without a little yin thrown in, all that doing without the being, all that building without the resting, all that contracting, even muscle, without flexing it back out. It's probably why I ended up with a neck issue after all these years. I was strong, I was contracted, I wasn't flexible. I don't want to flex, man. That's feminine. That's the yin. I'm not interested in that. I want to be strong. But you got to have that balance and that centeredness and that yin with the yang, right?
Yeah.
Because we also, especially you and me and a lot of our audience, like, what's our why for fitness and health? Oh, you can bench 400 pounds. Cool. Cool. How are your shoulders? 20 years into it. Let's talk about that. But are you going to live long and strong for your kids? That's what I get excited about. Being clear on our why. And for most men, the why in fitness, once we get through our insecurities, I wanted to build muscle because I grew up a small kid. And I wanted to feel powerful and strong, man. Can't
Yeah.
blame that.
I feel like a lot of men too are they look to women for like what it is to be a man, and they don't know. They just know that they want a man. They want somebody who
Yeah.
can protect them. They want somebody strong, but they also want somebody who's emotionally intelligent. You
Yeah.
know,
You want to
women.
talk about that? You want to talk about the feminine and the masculine in that relationship?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can get down on that.
Like women are looking
Yeah.
for men, but most men, they're like, they look to women to say like, oh, what is a
Yeah.
man? Or, men look to other childish men, and in terms of like they're just prowling around trying to find a woman to sleep
Mm-hmm.
with, or
Mm-hmm.
just all the money they can get, instead of listening to actual men tell other men what being a man truly is.
Yeah, well, who's it been modeled for? So if you look at where we are today in society, 1 in 4 households don't have a dad in that household. It's like 18 million. It's the last stat. That's not a good
Yeah, this
recipe.
stuff is so important to me. That's
This
why, like,
stuff is huge.
yeah,
You want to solve a lot of the problems in the world, put dads back in the households, but they don't want to do that. They don't even want to talk about that. In fact, I think it's been intentional that they've dumbed the men and the dads down. It's intentional. It's by design. That was going on 30 years ago on the sitcoms. But if we really want, look at our country. Look at the leadership right now. Are you kidding me? Look at the economy. That's just poor leadership. It's disgusting. Get dads back in households, and no one wants to talk about that because they don't want to deal with root cause. They want to transfer money and ship money out and say they love inner city. Go fix dads. Go put dads back in households and watch it realign and reintegrate. Watch the success. Go look at the stats of dadless households. Like 70% of high school dropouts are without their boys without dads. The vast majority of the prison population, the violent crimes, these are all kids without dads. We need that big bull elephant,
yeah.
right?
And I will say, I actually wrote this down, specifically about father figures. It was something I was reading. Like I said, I'm still just like, I'm fired up. I almost want to like the Spartan chant, oh, oh,
Love it. I love it,
you
man.
know.
Yeah.
But
Thumos.
yeah, but there's one thing that I wrote down from this book I was reading, and it said about father figures and mentors, and
Mm-hmm.
it said stop waiting to find that father figure or that
I
mentor.
love it, man.
Like,
I love it.
stop waiting for some wise man to run in and tell you all the mysteries of life. Stop actually waiting for that transition or that period of like, now you're a man, that thing you had to break through. Just start becoming,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know?
And you got to go ask. Let me speak to the audience for a
Yeah.
second. If you're out there and you're 20 or 30 or 40, there is some 50, 60, or 70-year-old that would love to mentor you. Business, relationships, whatever it may be, their purpose in life is to help and serve others in some way. And they've got wisdom, experience, talents, failures. That mess that they've been through, that they've cleaned up, gotten on the other side, they would love to teach that to somebody. So if you're out there, pick someone that you can connect with and ask him or her to mentor you. Check this out. I was doing men's work 15 years ago, and I was kind of in a victim state that night, sitting in a circle with a group of men. I was like, man, I've never had a mentor. I was at Shell at the time, right? I've never had a mentor. No one cares. And about a minute into it, I'm like, I'm a victim here. Like this ain't cool. And I go, oh man, I've never asked for a mentor. And this is the kind of work we do. They're just coaching questions. Why have I never asked for a mentor? because they might say no. Oh, what's at risk if they say no? I may feel rejected. What's at risk if I feel rejected? It's going to tap into my core wound. What's that core wound? Self-worth. I don't feel worthy. I've never asked for a mentor because I don't feel worthy to be mentored.
You may have been not ready. There's a quote I literally wrote down yesterday. It says, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." And you can't really. I was like, man, do I agree with that? I couldn't disagree, because it says when the student is ready, and the teacher will appear. Well, if you're not ready, the teacher won't appear. So it's kind of one of those, like, no matter how you say it, the saying's always right.
And guess what? I had teachers all around me, and I was not ready because I didn't have the awareness. And those men helped give me the awareness. And so the challenge, the agreement that I made is I'm going to go collect some no's. It's just like asking a girl out. Why don't you have a date? Well, I haven't asked a girl out. Why haven't you asked her out? Because she might say no. And it's the same vertical line.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got to go do then? I got to go collect some no's. And so I went out and I asked a couple of mentors, guys that mentor me. And here's what you do, I think. The tactic is pretty simple. Strategy is pretty simple. Hey, man, I really respect this and this about you. Would you be open to mentoring me? And before you answer, because what I'm doing is I'm making it real easy on you. Before you answer, I think what that looks like, if you're okay with it, is let me just buy you coffee twice a month, and I'll ask you one or two questions. No pre-work, no homework. You just tell me what you think. They're saying yes before I finish the question. And so I went out to go get some no's, and I got yeses. Oh shit, now what? Now what is I go ask, I follow my agreement, I meet with them, and I act on what they say. Because if they tell me something and I don't do it, because I don't agree with it or do agree with it, I'm just lazy, now I'm kind of disrespecting or wasting their time. So if I'm not going to do what they say, when they're kind enough to give me their thoughts, then I at least need to communicate it back to them to fill the vacuum, fill the void and the gap. But most of all, do what they say, and my growth is exponential.
I know we're getting a little bit closer towards the end, so before I ask kind of like some of the number one things you would suggest to people and get into that, I don't want them to click away first. So, what can people do to find out more about Thumos, or like where can they find you and something along those lines before we kind of start closing it out?
Thumos Strong Dads on all social media:
Okay.
TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Thumos Strong Dads. ThumosUSA.com as well as the website, if you're old school and use the website.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, if you're motivated out there and you're looking for more, you're stuck, you want some clarity, your path, your purpose, we're pretty good at helping men unlock their potential.
Yeah, and if anything, it's another resource. I would suggest don't be self-sabotaging. Don't be a hindrance to yourself. At least look it up, whether you pursue it or not. That's up to you, but it's at least here. It's like reading the summary of a book before ever actually reading the book.
That's right.
But with that being said, like I said before, and maybe it's redundant at this point, but people need to hear many things. Some things many times to actually get the point across. So to leave them, like, what is the number one thing men should do to pursue bettering themselves? Whether it's not through Thumos or whoever it is, just what is something all men should do to pursue bettering themselves?
Do the inner work, whatever that looks like. Maybe that's a spiritual retreat. Maybe that's a men's weekend. I did a book recently called The Illusion of Money, and that's more than just reading that book. That is a book with deep questions, the psychology of money, mindset of money, and I went through that as a workbook. Do the work. Some people do plant medicine. I don't talk about it. I don't do it. It's just not. I'm able to help men break through without it. But that's another version, when done responsibly, of men doing the work. Find a tribe, have deep connections, find a mentor. The bottom line, do the inner work. When we do the inner work, we get clear on the outer work. That's how we get the clarity on our purpose in life, our path. When God spoke to you at Disney World,
Yeah,
how did you feel when you got this clarity to know what your next steps were?
it was incredible. I wasn't in any good place or like mental state to receive anything, and I just, when something happens and you know it happens and you just can't put an explanation to it, it's fantastic. It's
It's
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't expect anything. It just happened. Like it wasn't like
Hmm.
some like voice. And I don't think we mentioned it on the podcast. We were just talking about it earlier, but
Hmm.
so the viewers know, I was basically given like three different things just while I was on vacation. A lot of things happening, and it just was like boom out of nowhere. And like it's like you could relate to it as an epiphany. Just kind of like this right now. Jody's. I just went to church essentially, without any association to the church or religion or something like that. Like I said, this is why I'm so excited about it because it's whatever you believe in or whatever cause you're assigned to. Any boy can become a man,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and that's why I'm so passionate about this.
I'm excited because I'm seeing dads step. So we talked about the absence of dads, but
Yeah.
let's talk about more of the guys that like perhaps that like we know and Thumos men, and credit to the dads out there, man. Credit to the dads. My generation didn't grow up hearing, I'm proud of you, son. You've got what it takes. You can do it. When we were holding tools for our dads were impatient and yelling at us. That was their stuff. We just didn't know it. And we're 50 and 60 just now figuring this stuff out because we're doing the work. No book could have probably taught us that, maybe. When I see young dads and even older dads now, they're being intentional with those boys and girls. They're dating their daughters. I've got 12 things I'm teaching on Thumos School for Men, the shorts, 12 things I'm teaching my boys, right? Like these are the 12 things. Dads, pour in to your kids, age appropriately. Tell them about the mistakes you've made. My hope with my boys, I have 3 boys, is that they will learn from my mistakes. They already know I know them. Like my 15-year-old, I peg him because he is me, so he can't get away with anything. I know what he's thinking half the time. So I tell him about my mistakes in hopes that he doesn't make some of those same mistakes. Be intentional, connect with those sons and daughters. And even if we don't have kids, when we're in the gym or we're somewhere else, we are the dads. If we're older than 30, 35, even though we may not feel our age, like we are the role model, we are the dads and the coaches. I'll often say, I can't imagine had one dad or one coach given me one compliment somewhere along the line that could have really impacted my life in a positive way. I can't remember a compliment that a coach gave me. I mean, I was a small kid. I didn't get their attention. We are the dads and coaches now. We can go up to some kid in the gym and go, dude, your shoulders are looking good, man. Keep on. What if that's the compliment he needs to save his life or give him enough passion and fuel, encouragement to change directions?
Yeah, and I'll say this just since we're closing out. If you don't have children, if you're not a dad, you could still be a mentor. You can be a father-like figure. You can be a coach to somebody. So whatever it is, it's strong men leading strong men and building other men, and that's the whole purpose of this episode. And with that being said, man, I appreciate your time and thank you for being on because I believe this will help many people. Whether it's a month from now, whether it's a year, whether it's 20 years, it does not matter. But everything we talked about is things men need to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I thank you for coming, man. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for watching. And I will finish it out by saying if you like this episode and you want to see more stuff like this specifically, please leave comments down below. Let us know what you think. Let us know your ideas, your thoughts, all of that. And thanks for watching. Thanks for just being you and continue to pursue better. Continue to pursue progress, whatever that means for you. Just pursue better. And again, I know I'm sounding long-winded now, but thanks for watching.